Ken Goldstein, Vice President of Choice Technologies. I'm joined with Jim Sproat, our Director of Security and Compliance, and Elizabeth Elder, our Security Consultant and Project Manager. So today we're here to talk about how to manage our risk in today's environment, specifically focusing on the threat of security breaches. Now I know we all hear this a lot. It's in the news and we're getting kind of sick of it, but really that's what the nefarious people want. They want us to almost become complacent. So what we want to do is talk about security and really our responsibilities as users to make sure the organizations in which we work are secure and safe, and also to understand that what we're trying to protect necessarily is the data. And we like to view data really as money. It has value just like regular old cash. So again, kind of changing our thought patterns on what data is and what we're actually protecting, and we're going to go over ways that we can protect things within the work environment. So the threat is real. It's only increasing. Last year we had monitored cyber attacks in the United States of $1.5 million. And as the bad tools, the hacking tools are becoming more proliferated and more available, it's happening more and more. So it's not only these nefarious entities, maybe from different countries, it could be anyone, and they're all going for the same thing. Well, either it would be intellectual property or the data itself, which has values. And there's a big cost to organizations when these breaches occur. Not only what you lose, because there is a value, but the time to respond, the downtime, the detection part of it, the notification, and the cost to remediate or respond to these things. And one of the scary things is that about 2/3 of the data out there, or at least the bad software or hacks out there, is undetected. It's in the environment and it's not necessarily known. So this not only affects big businesses, but it also affects small businesses as well. So we see a lot of businesses around the country that are being hacked, from hospitals and small organizations. So really, this is about our ability as users to be able to protect this data and make sure we're secure and be smart in the way that we're using our technology, whether it be our computer, our mobile devices, our tablets, or what have you. So to help illustrate what our responsibilities are, we have this video that I think will resonate.
Like most organizations, your workplace may already have a system for keeping its computers and networks more secure. Unfortunately, that's not always enough. Protecting your organization's data, network, customer, and employee information takes the cooperation of every computer user. Fortunately, Internet safety just takes some know-how, a bit of planning, and most importantly, a little action. That's why it's important to stay sharp on Internet safety. Let's start by looking at ways to help protect your computer. If your workplace already has rules for Internet use, be sure to familiarize yourself with them and follow them. To further help safeguard your company's information, start by checking your computer's security system. Anti-spyware and antivirus protection should always remain activated. Turn on your computer's firewall located in the security center of the control panel. For email, it's important to protect your workplace computer from the same kinds of emails that can harm your home computer, like spam. Reduce those unwanted advertisements or emails by setting your email spam or phishing filter to its highest setting. When spam shows up in your inbox, mark it as spam to alert your email provider. To make sure wanted mail doesn't get filtered out, enter important contacts into your email address book. Now, let's get to the point on taking care of your personal and work-related information. Phishing scams often look like official emails from a bank, internet provider, or other legitimate company warning that your account will be closed if you don't take some action immediately, such as confirm an account number or password. Delete these emails. If you're unsure, use a known telephone number to call the company for verification. Some emails can contain unwanted applications or viruses that can damage your computer. So, Never open an email attachment unless you're sure of the source. And set your email to automatically scan all attachments for viruses before downloading. And remember to keep password protection enabled at all times. Avoid using passwords that others could guess, such as sequential numbers, your birthday, or a pet's name. Instead, use a mix of upper and lowercase letters, numbers, and special characters, such as the asterisk or exclamation point. Don't use the Save Password feature on login forms. Always remember to log off your computer at the end of the day. And lock up laptops in cabinets or drawers before you leave the office, helping to keep your workplace computer and your information safe and secure. Make internet safety a priority in your workplace. Stay sharp, stay involved, and stay safe. Visit our website for more information.
That's a great video. Basically, it's a fun way to look at security and how we need to deal with security. But it's real, and it's something that we all have to deal with. And one of the areas that we look at, if you look at this slide, a group called ATE basically did a study of 110 small and mid-sized businesses around June of 2011. And they looked at really 1/3 of all businesses surveyed had experienced online fraud attempts. It's a big situation. And again, 2014 is the year of the threat, year of the compromise. Basically, it has been kicked up over the years, and we can probably look at that as being probably, at this point, 2/3 of businesses have been impacted by this situation, by some type of a threat. Fortunately, one of the things we looked at as we looked at that video, that preventative steps to help defend your company's assets don't require us to be experts or spend a lot of money. It's basically a matter of us educating ourselves about internet risks and developing practical habits that strengthen our security when we're online and doing things that just make sense. It is our responsibility. The company's response is to make sure that the organization is taken care of from an infrastructure perspective, but we need to do things as our responsibility to make sure that we're protecting our company's data. As Ken mentioned earlier, data is money, and it's essentially we have to make sure that we're protecting the company's assets. So we're going to take some time to look at a few steps to help protect us against cybersecurity and some of the ways that we need to work. So as we look at this, we're going to look at these 5 things: strengthening your computer's defenses. We're going to look at avoiding downloading malware. We're going to protect company and data financial assets. And then 4th, we're going to talk about create strong passwords and keeping them private. And then the last thing we're going to deal with is guard data and devices when you're on the go. So as we look at this, let's look at our first situation, and that is strengthening your computer's defenses. There are 3 things that we need to look at, and each of these 3 things are equally important in maintaining our systems. Now, your company is probably taking care of these from a corporate level, but the problem we look at is that with the abundance of data and the abundance of technology nowadays, everybody, I would venture to say probably everybody listening, not only has their computer at the office, they also have a laptop. They also may have a tablet, an iPad, a Droid tablet, and they're going to have a smartphone. All of these have data, and they have data components to them, as well as, not to forget, your home PC. And a lot of us work from home. A lot of us, will take files, take them home, and work from our home offices. These 3 things are going to be key in protecting the environment that you're going to be working in outside of the office. We always need to make sure that we keep virus protection turned on. Virus protection is integral in making sure that we're creating a shield around your PC or whatever device you're using. That also goes in hand with installing a legitimate anti-malware software. We'll talk more about malware as we get into this presentation, but we want to make sure that those 2 types of software are installed and always continuously updated, not only in your company, but also on all the devices that you interact with, your laptops, your home PCs, your phones, as well as your tablets. Now, the third aspect of this is keeping your software up to date. Now, from a corporate standpoint, most companies are basically doing automatic updates, and they're making sure that the organization is being updated. But again, once you leave that organization, you're working from home or working remotely, your different devices, as your laptops and phones, will come up with needing updates. And it's recommended that you're always either setting automatic updates or making sure that your systems are always up to date with the latest, greatest version of the software. Not only do they potentially give you new features of your program, but they will continually fix security vulnerabilities, things that potentially people could use to attack your system. And then lastly, in dealing with software updates and keeping up to date, is the fact that you also need to do regular audits on your systems, all the systems that you interact with, and look at the programs that you're using. And then making sure that those programs, if you're not using them and they're just taking up space or you don't have a need for them, uninstall them, get rid of them, because if they're not up to date and automatically updated, they could become a security hole on your system. Because if you're not using them, you're not updating them most likely, and therefore they could have tricks that we need to be aware of as we go through. And the second thing we need to look at is avoid downloading malware. We see a pretty scary, pretty official-looking document, which also can be pretty scary as we look at it a little further. This message urged the recipient to use an embedded link to open a subpoena. However, anyone who clicked on that link unwittingly installed software that secretly captured passwords, usernames, and account numbers, and other company data that an executive typed, and then sent it to a criminal's computer. The malware also enabled criminals to control the infected computer remotely, wreaking further havoc. Security researchers believe that at least several thousand executives took this bait and compromised their computers. This is a problem that we deal with on a consistent basis, is that we receive things that look official, that look similar to something that we may be seeing. It could be as simple as a credit card. They're asking you to update your information on an American Express card, those type of things. We receive these emails, and because we're creatures of doing what we're told, we have a tendency to click before thinking. And we just do it, we fill in the information, and we've potentially unleashed data, which, as we know, data is money. We've potentially put companies' data out there. So one of the things we need to look at is be very vigilant in what we do. And as we receive things in email, or we receive things in our computer, or see things on our systems, that we need to be verifying and validating. We can't just immediately trust everything that we see. If it's from someone that you don't recognize, or if it's someone from recognized, look at the document. If there's a question on it, contact with a verified number back to, if it's American Express, call American Express. Check to see if they've actually sent an email or if there's something that they require from you, and that way it's validated. In this situation of this document you see in front of you, if somebody potentially called and said, called the legal department of the company and asked if, are we in the midst of litigation? Would this be something that would be legitimate? They may have caught this and saved a lot of headaches for a lot of organizations. So be vigilant, look, trust but verify, and make sure that that's an accurate document. One of the things you also want to look at is, if you look at the other part of the slide, is that don't be tricked into downloading the malware. Think before you click, confirm message is legitimate, and close pop-up messages carefully. This is a big deal, because if you look at this, you'll see that there are little cross through circles. When malware pop-ups happen on your system or any type of device, you can look at those. Those become hotspots to be able to click. And if you were to click in an OK or a cancel, our first inclination would be to click the cancel, get rid of it. That could be a very bad thing, because all of those three buttons, those little circles, could do the very same thing and install malware on your system. So be very careful. Don't immediately just click cancel, or don't click the X, because if it's a pop-up, chances are it may have something embedded, and that's where you want to hit Control F4 and close it from that way.
So Jim, that image is probably, the entire image is active.
Correct. Most likely they're going to probably have those three areas being as an image, but they could have that whole image being an active image. So be very careful when you see a pop-up. Don't immediately just think that the X will close it or the cancel. You may be having a payload that you really don't want to have put on your system. So.
And really, this image is kind of scary. If I'm looking at it and I had to come up on my window, I would see Microsoft Internet Explorer. To me, that's a trusted software program. So I would say, oh my gosh, I've got spyware, what do I do? And then if I really didn't understand, before I saw this this presentation, I would have hit cancel or X. This Control F4 for me it's a workflow change. So, I mean, I probably wouldn't see it so much here at work. I would see it more at home, but now I know, and I'm going to tell my family, Control F4 to get rid of that pop-up.
Yeah, thank you, Elizabeth. And I don't want to create paranoia for people, but yet I want people to be understanding that this is real. This is a situation. Even be suspicious of links and attachments from someone within your company. Someone could be compromised in your company and actually sending something, or at the automated link being sent to everyone in their group. So especially if it's something unexpected, like I love Pink Ponies PDF from your boss. That may be appropriate for some organizations, but that, these are things you want to look and be very careful with. Just because the email message says it's a LinkedIn update doesn't mean it is. You never know if a criminal has hacked into a coworker's account or that his or her computer has been infected with a virus that is automatically sending spam. So avoid clicking agree, okay, or I accept in banner ads, and unexpected pop-up messages or warnings, or a website that seems suspicious to you, or an offers to remove spyware or viruses. This could also be a trigger to download malware. So again, remember that Control F4. Let's take a look at step 3. And this is protecting company data and financial assets. And one of the things we want to look at is, again, and we hit this home a number of ways, but data is money, and we need to protect our company's data, whether we're in the office or outside of the office. And some of the things we need to look at is handling sensitive data. We've got to avoid putting confidential information in an email unless it's encrypted. And encryption basically takes and scrambles the information that you're typing in, so that way prying eyes cannot see it in transmission. So if you don't have encrypted email, you need to make sure that you're not putting personal or potential confidential information in that email, because it's potentially, it has the ability for other people to see it. So we want to make sure that you're not putting account numbers, that you're not putting that information as you go. Avoid putting sensitive information in instant or text messages, as those are not typically secure. These account numbers and passwords, intellectual property and customer data, and so on. Make sure that you're really aware of what you're typing in an email and in a text message. Now, again, there are systems that you can get secure email and secure text message, but if you do not have that, you need to be aware of what you're putting in that email. Beware of scams and fraud. There are a lot of things. You may receive an email from somebody from overseas that wants you to help them broker a deal to be able to transfer money from a long-lost uncle or that type of thing. Beware of those letters. Basically, you want to look at those a little bit harder. There's websites that will allow you to be able to look through those. For instance, Snopes.com is a great website. If you're not sure if something's real or it just sounds just a little bit off what you would think it would be, you can look on Snopes, and they usually do validate or disprove any of those issues. Think before you click, and again, keep sensitive data private. So one of the things you want to look at is stop and think before you click links, open photos, songs, or other attachments, and a message from someone you don't know.
Next step, create strong passwords. I mean, this has got to be so onerous for everybody who's listening, because to come up with a new password that's strong enough and creative enough that you can remember is not an easy thing to do. So we're going to go through these just to show you examples of ones that aren't strong and ones that are, and then I'll share a couple of tips with what I do. So password 1, is that strong? I mean, it's got a number and it's got a letter. It's weak. It's the most common network password that there is. It's absolutely not allowed, so please don't do that. Next, this is a date. This might be your best friend's birthday. This is my best friend's birthday, and I'm not kidding. It really is my best friend's birthday. This is not a good password to have. Anything that's a string of numbers is not going to be a good password. So this is weak. And advantageous, I would say this as a good password. It's more than 8 characters. It's upper and lower case with special characters and numbers. But it's weak because it's a word in the dictionary. So stay away from one word from the dictionary. What you want to do is this next password works really well. It's a combination of small words put together that might not make a lot of sense to you, but whoever put together, you know, maybe they have red doors with swans and they really like rice, but we're never really going to know. So this is great because it has the upper lowercase, it has numbers being used, and it is a strong password. This doesn't really mean anything to me, but having a string of numbers like this, like I said before, isn't a good password. This is a very complicated string. It's using a mnemonic device, which may help you put together a good password. So if you can think of things like this and remember them on a regular basis, more power to you. I'm not sure I would be able to do this, but you know, maybe you have something, you remember mnemonic devices you used from your childhood, might help you. For me personally, I use song lyrics, and I'll, you know, just pick a string of maybe 5 words from a song that I really like, so that I can start the song in my head, and then oh yeah, that's my password. And then I put it in, and it's usually upper, lowercase, and well, I use all of the required things, upper, lower, numbers, and special characters. So I know it's you know, it's just where we are right now. Everybody has to change their passwords on a regular basis, and they need to be secure. And having that really complicated alphanumeric password sitting in tiny script underneath your phone is just not, it's not safe. And that's where somebody's going to look for it, either under your keyboard or under your phone. So don't do that. The next thing we want to is how to guard data and devices on the go. It's a mobile device, bring your own device environment now. People have their phones and their tablets and laptops. They come into their secure network in the office, and everything's fine. But you know, maybe you want to go to Panera for lunch and get a couple of things done for work while you're there. You really need to make sure that you know what you're doing. There may be a free Wi-Fi there, but are you sure what the Wi-Fi is supposed to be? Is it supposed to be Panera One, or maybe it's Panera Special? I don't know. You're going to need to talk to the cash register people. They're probably going to know what the Wi-Fi what's that thing called? SSID? The SSID is, and maybe you guys have never heard that term before, but when you're looking at your wireless networks, they have special names, and it's really easy for somebody to come into Panera or just outside of Panera and set up their own free Wi-Fi for you, but they're watching everything that you're doing while you're connected. So that's very important. If you are on a Wi-Fi out in the world, make sure you encrypt your confidential data. It's better to not do it at all, especially if you're on a public Wi-Fi. But if you are out and about, you want to encrypt your confidential data. It's not going to protect it all the way if you have somebody who is absolutely intent on getting your confidential data, but it will absolutely slow the process down for them. You want to save sensitive activities for trusted connections. That way, the next time you go on, you know exactly where that connection is supposed to go. For flash drives in particular, it's a flash drive, you need to use them so you don't compromise your computer or network security. Flash drives can so easily be used to infect computers and company networks with malicious software that the U.S. military actually banned their use back in 2008. So if you do use them, minimize the risk. Don't put any unknown flash or USB drive into your computer. It could have been corrupted after being inserted in an infected computer. On your flash drive, don't open any files you don't recognize or that you don't remember putting there in case they harbor malware. So I think that was number 5, right?
Well, I have a question.
Okay.
The banking commercial that we see very often. Now, they're secure. Their website is secure. That's what they're saying. So you're saying if I go to Panera and go onto their guest Wi-Fi, I'm really not secure. Just because the bank site is secure doesn't mean my connection's secure?
That's right. Somebody could really be watching your keystrokes, and while they, that commercial, I love watching it because, this guy's getting work done while he's getting ready for an interview. It's really not recommended to do any type of secure, like payroll or pay your invoices, do banking or other financial business over any device while using a public Wi-Fi.
Okay. One of the things we look at is problems, what to do. One of the things we look at is we want to look at reporting abuse and other problems. One of the issues that you have is that if you, by accident, were to click on something and it puts a malware on your computer, the worst thing you could do is just not say anything. So if something happens, report it and let people know as soon as you see something that's just not right. Something just sitting there left unlooked at can become initially a very small problem, but down the road can become a huge problem. So if people are starting, make sure you're reporting it. And then if somebody's trying to send you mail and phishing and trying to get information from you, please report that to somebody. Report that to your manager, report that to the company or your IT company. Make sure that that's being reported, that somebody's trying to get your information. Immediately report missing devices or theft of company data. That is just unbelievably imperative. If you leave your phone at Panera, we're picking on Panera today, but if you leave your phone somewhere,
we're hungry.
Yeah, if you leave your phone, if you leave a device somewhere, please let the powers that be, your security department, know that that's happened, so that way they can make their required steps to protect that. Change all passwords. Just because you like a password, you shouldn't be married to it. And this is one issue where a lot of companies will force that change after 90 days, 60 days, 30, depending on what your company's policy is. One of the things that you're looking at is with passwords, your banking passwords. Any of the other passwords that you use, please make sure you're changing them on a regular basis. And then if you decide everybody likes getting a new phone, everybody likes getting the latest, greatest phone on the market, make sure you're wiping your phone before you hand it in or getting rid of it. Or, if it's being transferred to somebody else, make sure you're wiping it around. But the biggest thing is, if you see something that's not right, please report it. And make sure that somebody knows, whether it's the security part of your security department, IT part, or somebody knows that something's not right. They'll know what to do and be able to help you through it.
Well, these are great tips and tricks that make us more vigilant and aware of what's going on and around. And you know, here at Technologies, we have a mission that our clients are productive and they are safe and secure. We actually have a methodology and an approach. It's a three-step approach to the way we handle the management of a system, particularly with our security. It's assess, address, and maintain. And what I'm going to do is go over in high level, not necessarily the technical detail, we'll let Jim and Elizabeth do that, but in a high level way, kind of explain our methodology and approach so we can keep your systems safe and secure. The assess phase is essentially matching the risks or the threats to a company and comparing it to the likelihood of those things. So through a process of technical tools and also questionnaires, we are discovering what a particular company or organization is most afraid of, or what's going to have the biggest impact on them. So is it a data leak with all their customer data? Is it access into a system? And then what is the likelihood of that impact? I always like to use the analogy of, a medical analogy, So for example, someone could be scared of having a heart attack. They may be a little older, a little overweight. So that's an impact. But what is the likelihood of that? So there's certain things that we have to do in order to discover what that likelihood is. Do they have high blood pressure? Are we running lab tests against it? Their labored breathing, things like that. So that's really the approach that we take from a security standpoint. If there is impact from losing data, from competition or reputation, how likely would it be? Are there firewalls in place? Are people, like we're discussing today, are they using their systems? Are they educated? And things like that, which moves us kind of to the address phase. Once we identify the likelihood of these impact items, we would present a list of things or recommendations or suggestions in order to mitigate those likelihood and impact. So it could be as tightening a firewall or adding malware bytes or something that would prevent things from getting in. And I think it's important to understand security in general when we're talking about these things. Now, security has three aspects to it. There's the protection part, there's the detection, and then there's the response. The detection, again, is kind of those firewalls and antivirus. The detection is things like a SIM, which we'll get into a little bit later, which is a security information and event manager. So those are the types of things that can detect things. And then the quicker we can detect these things, because remember we talked about in one of those slides that there's a 2/3 chance that there's something in your network that you're unaware of. That detection gives us the ability to respond or remediate quickly. So, and then we get into the maintain. The maintain is we've identified the threats and the likelihood of it. Now we want to make sure that we keep it secure and keep things, because it is dynamic. We're sending emails, we're changing documents, we're going, making phone calls or taking our laptops off-site. We want to be able to maintain these things to keep it mitigated, to keep you safe and secure. Now, Jim will get into more of the detail of these three approaches.
We'll take a few minutes to go through what it would be to go through an assessment as an organization. So as we look at this, we want to look at a risk assessment, basically identify the gaps. We're going to look and see where you have problems. By doing that, we're going to look at an external penetration test, which means we're essentially going to, in a ethical way, attack the external organization. We're going to look and see if there's holes, that there's ways that people can actually get in and take information back out from your organization. The second thing we're going to look at is an internal vulnerability scan. We're going to look at your network from the inside out, and we're going to see such things that if you have PCs that haven't logged in a month or users that don't have passwords, that type of thing, just to see how your organization from a security standpoint stacks up. Then we're going to look at a questionnaire. That's going to be kind of twofold, looking at your workflow and finding out how your system runs, what you do throughout the day. There's For instance, inconsistencies. I have one medical office that they have a shred box of patient information sitting by their desk, and and talking to the person that houses that shred box, I asked the question of how often do you take that to be shred, and they're like, well, we do it every couple days. And speaking with their manager, the process was, well, they're supposed to do that 3 times a day. So by going through and looking at questioning and going through the workflow process, we can see that there are potentially disconnects in their environment. So we work through those. One of the things is we look at as a basic assessment, very simply, we analyze your network devices, we pinpoint the weaknesses in your environment, we focus on existing vulnerabilities and things that you know, and then we also look at things that you don't know, and we report on your vulnerabilities. And then one of the biggest things is that we work on a best practices philosophy, which means that in our industry there are certain things that we have that are standard ways of operation. They're things that we are supposed to do to present a system it is supposed to work. If we go into a situation, we're going to look and see how far away from that best practices or what deviations you have from our standards, and then be able to validate or find ways to bring you back to that standard. So that's part of that assessment. Again, in our technological advancements, data can be everywhere and anywhere. So we need to also, part of our assessment is looking and finding out where that is. And as we've mentioned, it could be on your PCs, laptops, in the cloud, or a little bit of all of the above. So we need to look at that. And then we also look at who supports and watches it. We look and see, do they support it in-house? Do you have another organization that manages it in the cloud? Or is it multi-vendor? Do you have some data in certain different buckets in the cloud on your organization? So we look at who supports and watches it during the assessment. And one of the biggest things for assessment is a lot of compliances require assessment. And this is a very big list, but that's not a totally conclusive list of what can be out there. So again, what we do is we look at those that apply to your organization, and then we tailor that assessment also to fit those requirements as well. So again, what is a risk assessment? It identifies the hazards. It decides on who might be harmed and how. It evaluates your risk and decides on the precautions. And then we record findings, implement them, and then we review as necessary. Our process is to ensure your compliance, and then look at what your responsibilities, whether it's externally or internally, and then some compliance is required annually, but we do recommend looking at it annually. Things do change, and with advancements in technology, you always want to keep up to date and make sure that that assessment is as current as possible. And then why it's important, again, we've mentioned, it protects the company assets. Required to meet some compliances and making sure that you're audit ready, avoid fines, and avoid downtime. And one of the biggest things you want to look at is protecting your reputation. Everybody, all of these things work together to make sure that your information stays within your company and that only what you require or need is shared. And protecting your reputation by going through a thorough risk assessment will give you the ability to have a true picture of your organization and what's going on within your organization, as well as what potential threats could be facing your organization. So we want to protect your reputation by doing all of the above. If you don't know the risks, you don't know how to protect it. So uncover the unknown, as we have graciously have our little ostrich with its head buried in the sand. We want to make sure that companies aren't taking that approach. So
the next step, after we assess everything, we want to address those issues. So what we'll do is we'll take everything that we came up with in the assessment, including all of those big, huge reports, and we will shrink them up and have an executive summary that's about 10 pages that doesn't talk about bits and bytes, but we actually put it together in a business format to then speak to the business owner, the asset owner, so that they can understand how gaps in their compliance or their security will affect their business. So those gaps, what could they be? Well, we try to narrow it down to about 10 things. We've never actually come across a network that didn't have any gaps. I'm sure there are people out there that are very tightly pinned up, but I bet you it's really hard for them to do business that way. If you had every single thing so that you would be super secure, you probably would have a hard time doing business. And that's just the truth. So what we want to do is get you on the path to get towards compliance. So we're going to have things like web filtering that we might recommend, or email encryption, data encryption, mobile device management. But we're going to put all of those together and make the recommendations. We'll weight them based on the likelihood or the financial impact to your business. So we'll have those recommendations out, and we'll have a step-by-step plan on how to tackle those specific gaps. So on the other side of the slide, we have what looks like a wheel with a big, what would we call that in the middle?
Blob.
Blob. Okay. So we have this SIM. It's in the middle. And we have it in the middle because we see it as like the keystone in getting closer to compliance. Because what it does is all of these devices and programs, they throw off logs. And in almost every compliance, you're required to review logs. One server could throw off 1 million logs in one day. How is one person supposed to be able to even sift through 1 million logs without knowing which ones are the important ones? So what this SIM does is it smartly whittles down all of those issues into just a handful of items that people need to review. So if we can address the gap and have this SIM in the middle, you're going to be even closer to being compliant. So if you are audited or you have to attest for compliance, you'll be able to go to this portal and actually print out reports over a span of time to show how you've been compliant and that people are reviewing logs and all that great stuff.
So that segues us into the maintenance portion of it. Really, again, as I indicated, once we tighten up all these things and once we put remediations in place like spam filtering, web filtering, tightening up firewalls and things like that to protect the castle, we want to be able to maintain it. And as Elizabeth said, from a compliance standpoint, we can use this SIM device, which is the Security Information and Event Manager. But we can also use it as, it's kind of a smart tool. So essentially what it does, it takes what's called system logs or information from every device within your network and outside your network, such as your servers and your workstations and routers and firewalls. And it puts it through this funnel to indicate what's important and what's not. So it can actually make us even more aware. And it becomes more smart or smarter as it obtains more information. So we use this SIM as an alerting mechanism, and it's continuous. So not only does it keep you compliant, but it does keep you secure as it grows. And Jim can probably add a little bit more about it from a technical standpoint.
Well, essentially, what you need to know, you're given that information on a moment-by-moment basis so that you're not having to realize that the person has left and you now, oh, all that data's gone. This way you're notified immediately when that's happening. So it gives you the ability to maintain that integrity in the system.
So we've covered a lot today, and I think one of the objectives of today is really to educate everyone, particularly as users. So we talked about how it's more pervasive, these hacks. They want us to become almost complacent, but we got to stay vigilant. We have to be smart and aware in what we're looking at, and we have to understand that what we're protecting is very valuable. A breach could be very harmful. Again, data is valuable. It could be considered money to an organization. And there's certain things that we want to do, and as users, all of us, to make sure that we mitigate what those threats are. We want to be vigilant, and we want to protect the company as much as possible, because through our assessment, we can understand the impact. It's different for every organization, but there's impact for lack of security or lack of education. So we want to reduce that likelihood and then be able to maintain it moving forward. So again, the education is key. We be vigilant and kind of change our focus on what we're actually protecting. So we really appreciate your time. Thank you very much. If you have questions, our number is right up there. We'll be happy to answer them. I'm sure there's a lot of things that you need to digest. And again, if you have questions, please feel free to contact us. Thank you very much.